Hope she and her fight hasn't been forgotten.
I worked at BBC News for many years and am now probably best known for being dismissed by the commercial radio station LBC following my robust interview with an Israeli spokesperson. That was April 2024. Over a year on, we now know that an array of journalists at mainstream organizations have been dismissed, disciplined, lost income and opportunities for accurately reporting Israel's assault on Gaza. However, none of us have paid the ultimate price, losing our lives. Since 7th October 2023, Israel has killed an unprecedented number of Palestinian journalists. Many of them have been smeared by Israel and its supporters. Those false claims have been endlessly repeated by so-called prestige news outlets across TV, radio, newspapers and websites, with little or no pushback or caveat, thereby giving credence to Israeli propaganda. That includes unsubstantiated claims against Gaza journalist Anas al-Sharif, who was part of a Reuters Pulitzer Prize-winning team. He had documented in gut-wrenching detail the relentless destruction of his homeland, day in and day out, over 21 months. Anas was a household name to the Al Jazeera audience. The Committee to Protect Journalists and UN rapporteur had warned that he was in acute danger a month before he was killed. Governments and leading news organizations said and did absolutely nothing. On the 10th of August, he was assassinated. Israel did not shy away from its actions. Instead, it accused Anas of being a terrorist without providing any credible evidence. It also failed to explain why it killed 4 of his colleagues, wiping out an entire Al Jazeera news team in one attack. Instead, Israel continued to threaten journalists. I recently interviewed the investigative reporter, Anthony Lowenstein. He has reported on Israel's occupation of Gaza and the West Bank for many years now. Anthony describes Palestinian journalists as, and I quote, some of the most heroic individuals on the planet. They have to navigate both Israeli attacks and threats and Western contempt for their craft. Then, last weekend, we saw Israel attack the Nasser hospital in Khan Yunis. They killed 20 people. As journalists and first responders rushed to do their jobs, they too were killed. All 5 journalists worked for leading international media brands, including Reuters, AP, Al Jazeera, and Middle East Eye. They were freelancers: Mariam Daga, Ahmed Abu Aziz, Moaz Abu Taha, and contractors, Hussam al-Masiri and Hatem Khaled. The method used to annihilate them was the so-called double tap strike. Foreign correspondent Secundo Kamani described a double tap as a method used by terrorist organizations, including ISIS. It should never be the preserve of democracies and self-styled moral armies. How do we know all of this? The answer, ironically, is that Israel's killing was broadcast live on an Arabic TV channel by Palestinian media workers. Back here in the UK, the next day, only 2 out of 12 national newspapers carried a front-page photograph of at least one of the dead Palestinian journalists.
Same.
The BBC's flagship radio news programme Today, where I once proudly worked, did not mention the killings in its headlines. The story was relegated to a footnote in a programme that is 3 hours long. I ask you, had Russia killed 5 journalists and emergency workers live on television, would the bulk of the British media have ignored or sidebarred it? The answer, I believe, is no. So what's the reason for the silence? You can draw your own conclusions. But Anthony Lowenstein puts it like this: what we are witnessing is, quote, Western racism and dehumanization toward Arab reporters who don't work for corporate media in London or New York. I, for my part, agree with him, because we have at least 2 years' worth of evidence. Palestinian journalists are the eyes and ears of the world. Without their work, the war crimes perpetrated by Israel would have gone undocumented. That's not just an opinion. It's the conclusion of every single credible international humanitarian law specialist, former diplomat, and aid worker that I've spoken to. When Hamas broke multiple laws of war on October the 7th, international news crews were permitted to enter Israel to report it, and rightly so. Yet almost 2 years on, not a single foreign reporting team has been allowed into Gaza unaccompanied to support Palestinian colleagues who carried the burden of detailing months of death, destruction, and famine. The UK government has, thus far, done little to address repeated calls to help protect Palestinian media workers. Instead, it is left to us, the NUJ's London Freelance Chapel, to speak up for our colleagues in Gaza and wherever journalists are at risk in the world, be it at home or abroad. Be in no doubt, the death of Palestinian journalists is not just the story of individuals. It is the death of journalism. If Israel is not held to account for breaching the protections afforded to journalists in Gaza under international law, the international community is giving the green light to every country around the world that we can be killed with impunity simply for doing our jobs. Photographer Valerie Zink, a freelance stringer who worked for Reuters, cut her press pass into pieces after Israel assassinated Anas al-Sharif. She said she could no longer conceive of wearing it with anything but deep shame after Reuters repeated baseless accusations leveled at him by his killers. She wrote, "I don't know what it means to honor the courage and sacrifice of journalists in Gaza, the bravest and best to ever live. But going forward, I will direct whatever contributions I have to offer with that front of mind." It is advice that many of us could take. I end with this appeal. If you are a journalist and you have not yet spoken up for Palestinian media workers in Gaza who have been targeted and killed by Israeli forces while relying on their testimony, contacts, video footage and sound as the bedrock of your understanding, analysis and reporting, then the time to speak up is right now. Please do not hide behind a misunderstanding of impartiality. Look at the evidence. And if you don't or won't, then shame on you. Thank you and well done to all of you for being here today. And thank you for listening.